The heat is on. Shedeur Sanders is finally being defended after all the criticism he's faced. And this time, it's not just fans. Journalists and even players are checking Tom Brady over his comments. What started as Brady giving advice has turned into a full-blown debate. Did Brady cross the line, or are people just protecting Shedeur? Let's break it all down. Recent remarks made by Tom Brady have sparked a full-fledged tempest and reignited interest in the NFL's sinister secrets. His comments on black quarterbacks have caused old wounds to revive, reigniting a subject that many believed had been put to rest. This dispute has spurred new discussions about structural problems in the league, as some wonder why this trend keeps happening.
The NFL is a willing participant in the overthrow of American values.
The question of what the corporate owners have been up to behind the scenes is raised if someone like Tom Brady, a former NFL player who has accomplished so much, is making these claims. Are their acts equally concerning? These are the difficult issues that we must address now.
To file a lawsuit for the world to know that there's a problem from a hiring standpoint in regards to minority coaches in the National Football League. The numbers speak for themselves.
Whether it's the way black coaches or players are treated on the field, the NFL has long been criticized for its racial problems. Although the league has made an effort to justify its activities by saying that it is taking steps to guarantee that the NFL maintains its prominence in the media and that its stock values keep rising, its methods frequently appear to be ineffective. For example, they decided to exclude any allusions to racism from the touchdown line during last year's Super Bowl. It is difficult to overlook the optics when a prominent event with prominent attendees like Donald Trump might have offered the league a chance to strongly condemn misconduct, but instead, the league chose to send a different message. According to reports, the NFL may have been under pressure from the Trump administration to take down the statement. This brings us to the crucial question. If the NFL's entire image is susceptible to manipulation by outside parties that don't even consider the wider picture, what good is it?
The NFL is going to remove the words "end racism" from the end zone during the Super Bowl this Sunday. And I know that sounds so shocking that you think it can't be real.
Bill Mayer immediately asserted that the White House was responsible for the call to take down those racial justice slogans. However, experts think there is more to the truth that the NFL's millionaire owners who were desperate to preserve their business were the ones who really pushed for change. And just because of that admission, the league is receiving more side-eye than ever before. This is where it became explosive. In fact, Maher supported the choice. However, a black player clapped back before he could finish speaking, revealing the offensive undertone in Maher's defense. It wasn't only poor aesthetics, in his opinion. It was overt racism masquerading as corporate jargon. And the floodgates opened wide as soon as that door broke open. NFL players began to speak up. They weren't sugarcoating it either. The responses to the question of whether racism occurs in locker rooms were frank and unvarnished. It is there everywhere, yes. According to one veteran, the locker room may be one of the most prejudiced and toxic places in the sport, even if outsiders view it as hallowed.
But I think it's an asshole to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or any. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's gonna make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you write "don't be an asshole" in the end zone, everybody will agree with that.
This is where the true tragedy lies. Players who experience this often feel stuck. The cycle continues if they remain silent. However, if they voice their opinions, the media distorts the facts, portraying them as troublemakers and ruining their careers before they even reach their full potential. The twisted double bind is that: speak up and risk everything, or remain silent and suffer. The question that fans are currently plagued by is cruel. How far up the chain does racism actually extend, if it is present thus deeply within the locker room?
Is it racism inside of the locker room?
The one sacred place that you think you have is the locker room. There's a lot of things that go on inside that, you know, the outside world isn't privy to. A lot of conversations, but does racism exist in the locker room?
Many black players feel pressured to hide the fact that racism in the NFL is still very much alive and well for the sake of their careers. Some even assert that the league is America's least racist organization, a claim that sounds more like a survival tactic than the truth, because quiet turns into a weapon against you when your future and your income are at stake. Consider Cam Ward, the first overall draft pick, who famously remarked, "No matter how difficult the path is, every boy aspires to play in the NFL." Whether racist or not, he referred to it as the ultimate dream. His remarks exposed the harsh truth that many athletes must swallow their suffering and act as though the system isn't flawed to pursue their dreams. However, the situation becomes much more dire when you consider cases like Shedeur Sanders. Once thought to be a top pick, this quarterback could have gone first or second overall. Rather, he advanced to the 5th round and is currently struggling to stay in the league. What had he done wrong? The fact that he was a black quarterback who dared to shine too brightly. His confidence, his flair, and his refusal to dull his light. Not a terrible play, not poor stats. That is the reason he was targeted. Some insiders saw that swagger as conceit, just one more way to bring him down. The pattern is the same as before. Black athletes' talent is abruptly overwhelmed by racism when they don't match the league's desired model. Cam Ward acknowledged it as well. He criticized the NFL for fabricating stories, claiming that the organization and its media apparatus use the spotlight as a weapon. He claimed that Shedeur is being unfairly portrayed as a problem simply for being himself, and that this treatment is identical to what he received years ago. And that's the most repulsive aspect. The media distorts in addition to criticizing. It distorts the perception of athletes like Shedeur by exaggerating their shortcomings and downplaying their skills till the general public believes a lie. The battle isn't limited to the field for these quarterbacks. It goes against a system designed to confine individuals to a box they never requested. The mask has now been torn off by Tom Brady's position on black quarterbacks, who welcome self-examination. Once more, racism remains ingrained in the NFL. He attempted to backtrack by arguing that the celebration should be team-oriented, but his jabs at individualism and self-branding reveal the true nature of the situation. The underlying meaning was obvious. It becomes an issue when black players exhibit individuality and pride. His remarks were more than merely innocuous viewpoints. They revealed a prejudice that has pervaded the league for many years. The NFL culture penalizes athletes for not fitting a certain template, rather than valuing those who play with authenticity. Brady's remarks also weren't unexpected. They exemplified the mindset that has prevented some of the greatest black quarterbacks in history from reaching their full potential. The way this immediately connects to the league's larger mess is absurd. When reality sets in, every attempt by the NFL to appear progressive begins to fall apart. Shedeur Sanders is battling to establish his place. Cam Ward acknowledges the way the NFL fabricates stories, and Brady's flimsy accusations. Everything depicts the same image. Even with the NFL's sophisticated diversity-related ads, the truth is still readily apparent. Black quarterbacks have been the subject of years of manipulation, distortion, and control over the narrative. Speak up. You're challenging. Take pride in yourself. Your self-centered display style. You're conceited. Players have lost draft picks, endorsement deals, and even their careers as a result of this unfair system. The NFL's soiled clothing is stacking up, and fans are now seeing the stains that can no longer be concealed. From pressuring players to minimize their own experiences to wiping racial justice slogans at the Super Bowl.
The situation reached a boiling point at this point. Brady has not been the only target of the criticism directed at his remarks. People are being forced to pull receipts from the NFL. Supporters are bringing up old instances to expose the league's systemic punishment of black quarterbacks who dared to go outside the box. Old draft slides, unfair benchings, and dubious media narratives are all being re-examined with new perspectives all of a sudden, and it is hard to ignore the trends. He wouldn't even be on a roster right now if his last meme wasn't Sanders, a supporter said, pointing directly at Shedeur Sanders. It hurts because it is directly related to the rumors that Deion Sanders had to use coercion to keep his son in the league. And whether or not that is accurate, it demonstrates how poisonous the discourse has gotten. The headline is no longer about talent. Cam Ward was drawn into the conspiracy by yet another wave of detractors who brought to light how the league had extolled him before tearing him down the moment he refused to play the quiet, modest character. Fans are now making the connections. Same treatment, same terrible pattern, different players. The NFL seems to have an unspoken rule. If you follow the rules and don't stand out too much, you might make it out alive. Players who do speak out, however, run the risk of ending their careers. Insiders claim that when the race issue is brought up in the media and any player involved is called a distraction, team officials detest it. A career can be ruined by that label alone more quickly than by a poor season, which raises the question of how many voices were cut off before they could ever be heard. Brady's remarks are no longer the only factor at play here. Fans and players alike are demanding answers that the NFL has evaded for far too long, and it's about decades of double standards catching up to the league. These actions, which were intended to preserve the NFL's glitzy image, have backfired and exposed the fundamental duplicity of the organization. The fissures only widen whenever the NFL tries to suppress the facts or silence athletes. The public is now at last realizing the extent of the issue. Although the league frequently discusses diversity and inclusion, fans are making the connections. The behaviors don't align with the words. No amount of public relations can stop the recurring patterns of bias, discrimination, and double standards. With players in the media speaking more loudly than ever, the NFL is in a difficult situation from which it cannot easily get out. This is the section that the league is most afraid of. Players are no longer remaining silent. It becomes more difficult to ignore reality with each new story that is revealed. Additionally, the NFL's own efforts to shut them down are just raising awareness of the problem. The fight for true equality is far from over. And additionally, the league is under more pressure than ever before. The key questions are therefore still out in the air. Is the NFL genuinely prepared to address racism, or are they just covering up a problem to preserve their reputation? For what length of time will athletes continue to jeopardize their careers by remaining silent? And when will there ever be any meaningful change? Without the players, this league would not be able to continue. They're the ones who work hard, bear the responsibility of the limelight, and provide the spectators with the show every week. The game is created by the participants, even though the owners may have authority over the checks. Therefore, it is our responsibility to support them, raise their voices, and ensure that their struggle is not forgotten.